Hi, I'm Vanessa Hope, and I'm very excited to be joined tonight by Annemarie Jacir, a Palestinian filmmaker whose acclaimed features have played at major festivals worldwide and shaped contemporary Palestinian cinema. Palestine 36 is her first film to reach the Oscar shortlist for Best International Feature, and it's a beautiful, formally precise, quietly devastating portrait of life under occupation. I started to say, "Oh, wait," at the beginning, Anne Marie, because I was thinking, where are you coming to me from? I don't know where you are right now.
Well, I'm in a hotel at the moment in California, but normally I'm in Palestine.
Wow. Wow. So you're probably at the Palm Springs. No.
Yes.
Yes, which is actually really fun.
Yeah, it's really fun because I've screened there before, but I never got to go, so it's beautiful, really
Mhm.
beautiful.
Mhm. Your film has stayed with me since I had the opportunity to see it. There are no films like it out there. I wish there were more films like yours, and for so many reasons of the politics that you're grappling with and the epic scope and the intimate scale and the feminism of it, really. It's powerful and unique, and I wish you the opportunity to make many, many more movies, and I'm thankful for this one. You have a
Thank you.
fantastic yes, you have a fantastic, female lead in your film whose name I'm gonna butcher, but I'm gonna try to say Khuloud.
Yes. Very good.
Okay.
Very good.
And she feels like a new woman of the 1930s, really politically engaged, a working journalist, navigating, we could say, patriarchy or male supremacy and nationalism. I wonder how you built her character on the page and if there were specific historical women, archives, or texts that inspired her.
Yeah. I love her too. And Khuloud, who's played by Yasmin Al-Masri, she was somebody that I think she started to come first through archive, and I like that you mentioned that because I saw in mostly photographs a lot of women, Palestinian women of a certain class, in like sort of photographs where they're posing. There's a woman wearing a suit and like she's got a cigarette and like just sort of like having fun. They're really playful photographs. I have a family photo from the 30s where everybody's lined up for this big group photo, and there's this couple in the back that are somehow like my grandfather's cousin, and it's this man and he's standing there and she's leaning on him in this way, very cool and very mischievous and independent. And I just images like that came first, and then reading about the period and that there were a lot of female journalists in Palestine, in Lebanon, and in Egypt who were writing under male names. Mostly, not mostly, but one of the reasons was to be taken seriously, to have their articles be taken seriously. And the second reason, of course, was that they were writing under colonial governments. So it was dangerous to be a journalist, and to have another name also was protection. And then there was a socialite, a real socialite in Jerusalem, upper class Palestinian woman. They were, that couple moved a lot within the British circles, and they had parties, and there was also that part of life, colonial life. And so that's how Khulud started to be born, um,
It's
on
a
the page.
wonderful I'm so glad you mentioned the suit because it's such a fantastic opening image of her at the typewriter, at the desk, and she stays with you as she should. She pulls you in. She's someone we really wanna understand and be with, and you really have this vast range of characters of different classes, and you have extraordinary empathy and understanding for all of them. Her
Yeah,
husband, for
thank you.
example.
And
Yeah,
Khulud also, I mean, Yasmin also, I think, like, to embody then when the actor comes on board, and Yasmin really embodied her, and she became really obsessed with Khulud also, and loved her, and said
yeah,
that she never had a character like that she loved so much.
yeah.
That was also like that part of when the actor suddenly breathes life, and it's amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely. You really capture this world in this way and this marriage, and her husband is never a simple villain, you know? I mean, he's charming and modern and understandable and relatable as he betrays people, but this is revealed in a very careful way, and it's a slow build, and it's, powerful because it says so much about the personal and political, and I wonder how you were thinking about portraying that kind of class betrayal and collaboration, and you never turn him into caricature.
Yeah. Yeah, it was important that Amir was, charming and attractive. And, there was something, like Khulud living, life and somebody you wanted to be around. And it was important because of course she's with him. Khulud is with him. She chose him. And if it was so obviously, you know, could have easily been like a kind of pathetic guy, the guy who's, the collaborators, the most pathetic. And I thought I didn't want that. I wanted, that this was their marriage and they're growing in different, they're moving in different directions, but it's not completely clear and obvious. Otherwise, she would have, never been with him to begin with or left long ago. But it's also the 30s, so it's, not so common to leave. And it takes her, she takes her time, I think, to get there. And Zafar, who plays Amir, he really had that charm. And we talked a lot about character with him, that not to judge him, that he doesn't know. Amir's character maybe he has an ego. Maybe
Mhm.
he, he's wants to be important and he wants to, he's lacking something. We talked a lot about what he was lacking and
Yeah,
I suggested to him also that, maybe he is not of the same class as Khulud. Khulud is like old money and he's newer money. And so he's got something to prove to her somehow and to himself. And we talked a lot about that and what that meant and that, he doesn't know what
no.
these little choices. Nobody knows that in 10 years Palestine is going to be gone and he becomes a refugee and Khulud becomes a refugee and they lose that home and they lose that neighborhood and they lose everything that couple that lives in this, neighborhood is that neighborhood has been completely ethnically cleansed
Yeah,
after 48. And
right.
there's no way to know that, where he is, and it's like
Yeah.
just, okay, little business, little bit of this. It's not gonna become what became.
Absolutely, it's a little like that, metaphor of the frogs in the boiling water. Especially in the
Yeah,
United States right now, I mean, I think we're all feeling the water is boiling, and we don't know if we're all gonna die or we need to jump or we need to you don't know, and I think you portray that sense of the little decisions and hope. I mean, how can you not have some faith in people or want to have some faith in people or think that the system might be just toward you if you just play along for a little? It's so
yeah,
common and so understandable, but it's so awful, it's so horrible.
yeah, and that's the modern part, like, he's embracing modernity, why not? Like, let's move forward. Why do we get stuck in these old ideas, and why that it's, that when do you lose yourself in that?
Yeah. But you have this huge contrast between this urbane and sophisticated upper class city life and then the farms and the rural landscape. It's an epic film. It's really a masterpiece that you've made. And you manage these sweeping exteriors and these huge crowd scenes and the sense of everything that's going on. At the same time, you have these intimate moments and these personal relationships. And I am in awe. I wonder how you worked with your cinematographer, how you figured out actually also in the storytelling, how you could manage that scope.
Yeah, it was a lot of cast, a lot of locations. Helen Levart, we prepped everything, and I think we one of the things was talking about the different spaces and that land. There's land, and land is a character, and there's all of these this ensemble film, but this is the consistency. This is the thing that connects all of them together. And then to have, a different feeling and look for in terms of the camera language and color in the village versus the city, um, that it would feel different and that it was attractive. I mean, Yusuf was attracted, by that. He wants to leave his village and he's very attracted to that lifestyle and slowly feeling and understanding that he will never be part of that, that class and so we explored a lot I think color and even within the house,
Yeah.
spaces that were Khulud's spaces, spaces that were Amir's, and darkness and light, and the places that they meet. That was also, a lot of work with the production designer in creating that. Archive was important also in that way because we were building a world that doesn't has been destroyed, and the whole production office was plastered in photographs of every single scene in the film. We found photos that correlated to that scene. Almost, we told the story through still photographs. The villages were destroyed in Palestine, and so that was also in the construction and the look of the place. So much prep and so much, that line of being true to the authenticity of the way things looked and being free, because we're filmmakers and we want to be free, and we work in fiction. I
Yeah.
work in fiction because I like the freedom of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yusuf, you mentioned, he's a fantastic character because he comes from the village, right? But he is working as a driver for Khuloud and her husband. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's caught in between, and you really feel for him and for what is happening to the villages and how they're forced into these horrific, horrific positions. It's such awful behavior, imperialism. I mean, I don't know. There's no way to put it mildly. It's just absolute male supremacy. It's horrific, and it's repeating itself over and over again. We're still living with this.
Yeah. Yeah, it never ended, I think.
No. And you really make it so clear and so emotional. It's such a powerful film. I guess we've spoken a little about time and place and how you I mean, it is so challenging to make a period film. So you're working with the photographs and your production designer, you've got costume detail, you've spoken a little about language, the presence of the British.
There's also dialect. There was dialect. Language was important because we had the British characters, and they're speaking in English that people don't speak in, anymore. And the Palestinian characters, they're all from one village, and in Palestine, every village has a different dialect. We created a dialect. They worked with every single actor that was from the village worked with a dialect coach. First of all, it's a different dialect, but also there are words that were used in the is there was a lot of work done with a linguistic that linguists that work on the period, and we use words in the film that nobody uses today. And then there was the city, the Jerusalem accent, because neither one of them are from Jerusalem. So it was that, and it was also just making the world alive for the actors, instead of just straight up rehearsals. That Saleh, who plays Khalid, was have had horse back riding lessons for months, almost a year, I think. Thomas and Khuloud, were taking dance classes. There were typing lessons using the typewriter in the village, how to make bread, how to hang tobacco leaves, like how to work with your hands and do all that. They were all doing all these lessons, classes all the time. That stuff that is not sometimes even in the film, but it's part of their identity.
You really put us there. I mean, the scene where the British, this sort of attempt at a good mediator, good-hearted British person, which is the rare exception among the colonial regime. He is attempting to speak with the village elders about giving their land away, and they're talking about how the steppe farming had been going for thousands of years, and it's not something you can just give away. Just all of that kind of misunderstanding in the negotiations, and rarely was there goodwill. There was a sense of superiority and imposition and control and dominance that was horrible. But I just feel like you have so many layers and so much complexity to the storytelling, and there's no film like it, and we needed it. I
Thank
mean, I
you.
don't even know how you imagined you could take on such a huge.
I know. It was, yeah. That
Yeah.
scene makes me really sad, actually, that one you mentioned, because
Yeah.
I wrote it, and then I wrote it, of course, I cast, Billy Howell for Thomas, and then when he was saying those lines on set when we were shooting the scene, I remember just suddenly feeling really sad
Yeah.
because I was just like, you know what he's saying? People believed it. We believed it. And, and of course, we know that things turned out very differently and they didn't have to, but they did.
E
And
exactly. You feel that contrast between the cultures and ways of life, and you think, like, if only we could see clearly that those who thought they were superior are much more barbaric about how they go about this and in dealing with human beings and not treating them equally and with dignity, and there could have been another way, there could have been a better way. It feels like in those moments that you
yeah,
show. So you're not one to shy away from challenges, and you've broken ground as one of the first Palestinian women to direct narrative features. I wonder, again, from a producing standpoint now, how you could take on this period political drama and think about Palestine in 1936. And it's no easy feat. How did you get it financed or off the ground in a way that you can share with us? Because I think so many filmmakers would never take on these challenges.
I know. I wasn't thinking. I mean, I just didn't wanna think about what we couldn't do. And so I just was free when I wrote it. Whatever I just wrote freely and that didn't think about financing and money and all of this and that whatever, we'll deal with that later. And then when the later came, it took years. It took 8 7 years whatever to finance the film, and it was a huge, huge project for us, especially because we don't have support for cinema. We don't have any institutions that financially support cinema in Palestine. So everything then became this, the producer and I going around and pitching the project and meeting people and applications. And it's just like, exhausting. And it was just big. And then, there was, you love this story because I remember he was talking to a certain European producer, not somebody we worked with, but was maybe going to be somebody. And he said, "I read the script and I don't understand. It's really good, but why does Anne Marie want to play with the big boys?" Yeah, he actually said that, and he was like, "What do you mean play with the big?" And he said, "Well, I mean, war and like this kind of film. It's not really, like it's like she does, much more, in the smaller things. And like Wajib was in a car, like that was great. Yeah." It's like, but that was, I think, I heard that a lot. I heard that, like, this is not really, "Oh, this is not really a female film, is it?" I'm like, "But
It's
of course it
so
is, 'cause
important
it's
that
my
it's a
film."
woman. It's so important that we get a female perspective on war. It's got so much more nuance than when the boys play with this subject
Yeah,
matter and bungle it and, and make it look sexy and cool to shoot people in the
yeah.
head. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So it was a lot, and then we had the support of certain institutions like the British Film Institute, BBC Films, French co-production, and then a lot of support in the Arab world, Doha Film Institute, Red Sea Film Festival, a lot of. I can keep going. I mean, you saw the credits. It's like for huge.
No, but I mean, I have to say I was pleased to see all the British support because it made me feel
Yeah,
like, okay, they understand they screwed up Israel Palestine and they have a debt and they a responsibility and they want to support you and they know the importance of your
yeah,
voice telling this story and showing how they did in all
yeah,
honesty, in all truth, in kind of every aspect of class and military dominance and betrayal. I mean, the betrayal that they are responsible for is huge. So that they were
yeah.
financing you, I thought was a good. I mean, it took
I
long
mean, they
enough.
were very, very clear about the executives behind the project were like, it's time we face our colonial past. It's time we talk about it. And, this is, a point of view that we have not gotten.
Yeah.
And it's important that we support it,
Yep.
and they were great because, they stayed on board with the project, even with all the, problems and we had later with production. They really stayed on board and, felt that it was, something that we've got to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
and that they don't talk about it. It's not even, my British cast was saying that a lot. They're like, "We don't learn any of this, 0. None of this is in the
Yeah.
educational system. We don't," they completely skipped over this whole part of the world, not just Palestine, but,
Yeah.
many places.
Right.
So that was, yeah, that was really great to have to their support. And then there were like the main thing, the real, bulk of it came from private investors. I don't I it feels funny saying private investors, but that's what they were. But
Yeah.
for me, it was like our community. It was people from the community who wanted to see this story on screen and knew that there was no other way that it would be seen on screen unless, they supported it. So that was also really, really important for the financing.
And are you feeling pleased with how the film is being received? I mean, making the Oscar shortlist is great, but are you finding audiences are engaging as they should? And you're probably, as you've just described, sharing a story that they've never been taught in school and didn't really understand before and have never seen depicted at such a high level that's both emotional and kind of resonant on all the layers of politics and society at that time.
Yeah, I'm very happy with how it's going. British, where it was the first place we theatrically released the film. We're now going into our 11th week in the cinemas, which
Great.
is like amazing. And every time I go, I've gone to screenings in the UK, I'm so amazed by the audience there. I really feel the like love and
Good.
you know yeah, and it's, because it's very it's very tough on the British, and I thought, when I first went, I said, "Oh my god, I'm gonna, like, gonna get killed." And, it's been really good, and I feel that there's people that are, ready, like, I'm sure there are a lot of people who won't go see it, but, it's been 11 weeks now and still going, and, there's been some really beautiful screenings, and a lot of young people in the audience, like a lot of 18-year-olds and,
Great.
people who know about Palestine and people who don't. And we had the last screening I had in London, the niece of the guy, Thomas, Billy Howell's character, happened to be in the audience. And I didn't know the family. I'd based that character on diary entries and, reading about him and then she was there in the audience, and she was so beautiful because she stood up and she said, I somebody said, "Has the family of, this Thomas actually seen this film?" And she stood up, she's like, "I'm here. He's my uncle." And I was like, "Oh God," like I hope like they're okay with it. And she was like, "Thomas would have loved this film, and he was so affected. He would have loved this film, and he loved Palestine, and he was so affected because he really did. The real character quit.
Yeah.
He went there as part of the colonial project and slowly, understood it wasn't what he thought it was. And he left, and he became a Marxist. But what she said in front of the audience was even more beautiful than the fact that he became a Marxist. She said, he was so affected by what he experienced there that he became an anti-colonial activist the rest of his life.
Wow.
And that was really beautiful. Yeah.
Wow. That is incredible. And I wonder for you as a director, a writer, how you persevere. I mean, I can imagine this story is very close to you, but is there any advice you would give other artists or filmmakers for persevering and believing that they can make it through and bring the kind of hope that you do with this beautiful work that you've made?
Well, I think hope is definitely a practice.
Yeah.
And, I think about that a lot. And I feel like these days, very, in a way, it's very easy to be hopeless. And the whole world, not just Palestine, but everywhere is very dark. So I feel it's a practice to have hope. And I think it's important to think about your privilege and to recognize your own privilege. And when I was shooting this, that was always in my head. We are not in Gaza. We are
Yeah.
here, I have a house over my head. I have, my child is, at night in bed, she has food. I mean, I'm thinking about those things and that we are telling this story is a privilege that we are able to.
Yeah.
And I thought a lot about the people in Gaza, that you saw images of people. And of course, there was all the destruction, but there were images of people sitting together, playing music, telling jokes, like living their life, like insisting to live their lives. And we all, I think for all of us, the whole cast and crew, that was something always on our minds, and that we were doing this. If they have hope, and if they are doing this, and we follow them, we have to do this, and we do this for them, and we do this because we are learning from them. They are teaching us. So
Yeah,
I think that was, yeah, a big part of it. And I told myself every day, and there were days I actually laid in bed and I was like, today you must rise to the challenge. We must rise to the challenge. Like, that's what we
yeah,
have to do. Every day I said that lie to myself,
yeah,
rise to the challenge and
yeah.
go.
It's incredible. Okay, now that you've described yourself as in community with, older generations and younger and people of our generation and in the community that you're finding in making the film and in the audiences. On my mother's side of the family, her father comes from a German Jewish family and they were some of the first they were writing against Hitler and some of the first who had to flee and all of this.
Mm,
That's side of the family. I've never seen 1936 Palestine, but I've always been curious about it.
yeah.
My grandfather's mother on my father's side was a very wealthy woman named Amy Phipps. In the 20s and the 30s, they could travel the world. I have photo albums from their travels in the 30s. And a famous story that my father would tell was that Amy Phipps was a Christian scientist and that she thought she could help negotiate peace between Israel and Palestine at that time. And she was just
God.
driving her car back and forth trying to further negotiation. I don't know, you probably have never come across her, and I probably should figure out how to better research her, but it was literally so especially fascinating to me to see the reality through your film because, I had only heard this story that was, my father making fun of his grandmother, I guess,
Oh,
but it's kind of interesting.
that's interesting. I mean, to find
There
out, there was a lot of random, things I found, and I followed a lot of stuff. Like, there's a woman who was a school teacher in Ramallah, a British woman who was just a school teacher, and reading her diaries just about her going from Ramallah and back, and then she would see rebels and she would see British soldiers, and it's really just sort of very mundane, but really was impactful for me just to see like that world, and like characters like what you're talking about, like people who are involved in major moments. I mean, the Peel Commission, by the way, the secret testimonies that were done have recently been released, and
oh,
there's
really?
like a lot of names and things in there. I mean, they barely talk to any Palestinians as usual, like they're, but there's stuff in there that's really interesting, and names, I bet you could find
Oh, yeah?
something